So it's June. In fact, it's middle of June. It is exactly the middle of this calendar year. So it's a great time to do a general review of kind of everything while I'm working. So a few different tasks to do today, and I'll take you through my thoughts on things as we do them, including how the whole sown and grown plan has been. So one of the first jobs I'm going to get done is with the vegtrug and the strawberries. I need to get all the runners that I want to keep potted up. So you can see here there's heaps of runners, and this is how they make baby plants that I'll keep and use in other years. And if I can get them, and these are the little pots that I'm going to put them in. These are just little cheapo hanging pot things that we've used in the garden for years. Kate gave them a wee coat of spray paint recently to make them, well, basically to just kind of give them a refresh and match them in. But these will hang here. And that's where I'll get the runners going. So all of this mass of leaves then, I'm going to have a good old trim here and trim this right back. You can see that it's got really quite tall and full. And what's happening is everything is trying to get taller and outcompete everything else to try and get to the light. So I'm going to trim this back. Now, this isn't a normal job that you would do with strawberries. It's purely because I have overplanted here and they're just basically too many plants, too many leaves, and they're all fighting for space. So I'm going to give this all a trim back. If you are doing it, be careful because it's hard to see what's going on. Just make sure you're only trimming the leaves and not your little strawberry fruits and flowers. So let me get this done and then we'll chat about this trug, this whole veg trug, and how I'm finding it, because that's been 6 months now with this veg trug. Okay, so there you go then. I've taken a lot of foliage off. I've got a big bucket here, but always, always, always with this stuff, less is more. Don't take everything away. The plants need these leaves. These leaves create food and nutrition for the plants. So I always say never take more than a third away at any one time on a plant, okay? So just be aware of that. Make sure you still leave plenty of foliage if you do have to do this. But again, I can't emphasize this enough. Don't just copy me because I've done it. I'm correcting something I did wrong. I overplanted and swamped this area. So you don't do this unless you have to. Okay, so the next job I'm going to do is just basically add soil to these pots and put my little strawberry runners in there. But before I do that then, let's have a wee chat about this vegtrug. So vegtrug then. Vegtrug is the brand name for this big wooden planter. It is basically that. It's just a big planter, or you could say it's a small raised bed, however you like. Raised beds, planters, kind of same thing. So it's got this kind of liner in it that means you can put the soil in and it's not going to fall out because it's not a sealed unit. You can see that it slats, so it drains the water really, really well. It's not going to get waterlogged, but like I say, this holds the soil in place. We've chosen to put strawberries in it, but it's not specifically for strawberries, veg or anything like that. It's just really good for doing that kind of thing. It's nice and deep, so you could even use it for things like carrots if you wanted to, or you can just plant it up with flowers. Now obviously we're only in mid-June. For us then, we don't get strawberries here until the end of June. That's when we start getting our first ripe strawberries. So you can see here, almost ripe, just got a little bit to go, not quite there yet, which is different from down south in, say, England. So again, I always talk about don't think you're doing something wrong because you're not the same as somebody on the internet. It depends on your climate and weather and stuff. Scotland is way different from England. The north of Scotland is way different from us here in the central belt. So we don't get, all of that was just so I could say, we won't get ripe strawberries till the end of June. So I can't judge it on that at the minute. I can't say, oh, you know, it affected our harvest or we got more harvests or the plants were happy or any of that. All I can tell you is at the moment, everything is looking great, everything is looking healthy. So one of the benefits of tidying up was I could have a good look. There were hardly any weeds. I think I pulled 2 weeds. That could just be because there were so many leaves, it blocked out any weed seeds from landing, or it could be the height, it could be lots of reasons, but that's something that's cool. The plants generally are grown away like I would expect them to. I'm not seeing as much fruit as I would normally see at this time of year, but there is another thing. I don't think it's anything to do with this trug at all, because like I say, it's just a raised bed, just smaller. I think it's positioning. We thought that things here and at the side of the greenhouse would get heaps and heaps of sun, which is why we originally put the little outdoor tomatoes there, but we've realised that actually they don't. Over there is shaded in the morning by the greenhouse, and here, from about there onwards, gets shaded in the evening because the sun's over there and it gets shaded by the shed. So although where we sit gets sun all day and it's lovely, this is not getting as much sun as I thought it would. So I suspect that is going to affect things, but that is the position of where we put it, nothing to do with the actual trug itself. So far, halfway through the season, it drains brilliantly. I'm really impressed with that. It holds heaps. There is 300 litres of homemade compost in here. It holds a lot. Plants all look really healthy and happy. From here on, we're just going to have to watch and see how it goes. Now, the other thing, 2 new types of strawberries. So on this side, I've got pineberry, which are the white strawberries. On this side, I've got the Everbearer Albion, kind of standard red strawberries. This is only my second year growing these varieties. We moved them because we used to have them in the vertical wall planter in the chilluterie, but we found that that was just far too small for these plants. So we've moved everything here. So we will see. One of the things I'm going to look for is, do we get a bigger harvest from this trug? And are the berries bigger? Because I found they were all really quite small when they were over there. But you're going to have to wait a couple of months to get the full-on review of the strawberries and how that's going. But for the moment, vegtrug-wise, it's a thumbs up. The only 2 things I would say that I'm not happy about is, number one, it comes flat packed, and when we were putting it together, it didn't go together nearly as easily as all the instructions and videos made out. And we actually found a few bits just weren't the right length. So there's sort of gaps where there shouldn't be gaps. And it took us about 3 times longer to put it together than we thought it would. Not the end of the world. It's together, it's sturdy, it's stable, but that was a bit annoying because they're quite expensive. The second thing, I said it drains really, really well. Problem being, it's this light colour. So when it drains, all the water coming out of the compost is obviously stained because it's coming through compost. And that means it stains all of the legs and they all look pretty horrible. So that's another thing to think about. It starts off looking really pretty for your garden, but it doesn't stay looking that good. So we're going to have to really keep on top of painting and things, because it came painted with this kind of grey colour, but it's all worn away already. So we're going to have to repaint it. Luckily though, we've got that paint because that's the colour we use in the garden. So yeah, so that's the veg trug. I'm going to get these little runners planted up, and then I have some rudbeckia to plant. Basically, I've gone through this with you guys before, but strawberry runners, your plant puts out these big long tendrils, okay? And they'll just be big long straight tendrils like this, but eventually these little points that are turned up will turn into little plants, okay? Now, naturally, these would sit on the surface of the soil, wherever it's planted, and they'd start to root from underneath these little plants. Once that happens and they have a proper root system, these are then independent little plants. So you can then cut this runner here, so you're just left with this one plant. Or if you've got multiples in a string, obviously cut there when the next one's ready. And that is how you get new strawberry plants for the next year. So that is all I'm doing. I'm going to put soil in these pots, and then I'm going to pin these little plants, or these little nodules, into the soil on there, hang them back and just leave them until they're nice healthy looking little plants. Then I can cut them off, and that's me got baby strawberry plants to replace any of these next year if I want to. And this is just standard compost, nothing fancy. And I'm just going to fill these up. I'm going to need more pots. So as I said, Kate spray painted these pots because when we bought them they were all super colourful, and we actually put them on the fence down there and grew herbs in them, but it didn't do so well. So over the years we've done different things, like we put alpines in them and stuff, but Kate spray painted them the other week just to make them match in with our garden. Oh, I've got an extra. You guys know me, this will annoy me if it's uneven, but I might need it. Now, the big question I always get asked when I talk about this stuff is how you pin these little guys to the soil to stop them moving. Now, you can buy pins specifically to do this, and they're just little horseshoes of wire, but I just think that's quite an expensive way to go. All you're doing really is weighting it down on the soil so that it gets the chance to take root. So if you were doing this on, say, like in a raised bed or in a ground bed, a pot, whatever, where it's flat, you could just put a wee stone on top to weigh it down. So if I pick, right, this one's convenient. So I can see here, this is where the wee plant's going to come from. So I'm just going to put that on top of the soil like that. And I just take my wee horseshoe and just push it into the soil. There you go, so I've now got a potential baby strawberry plant in every pot. You'll see there are still loads of runners, so I can keep doing this as much as I want. But, as I said earlier, they'll just root wherever they touch soil. So you don't need to do this separate pot thing. If you've got space wherever you're growing them, you can just pin them into the soil in the bed wherever you're growing them and let them take root there. And then once they're little plants, you can always move them on if you want to. It's just I've overplanted as it is, so I don't want to encourage more plants to grow in there. So there you go, 6 months on, my strawberries. Okay, garlic's the next job then. Basically, we're having loads of trouble with the garlic this year. I think the bed is just far too wet. It has been such a wet spring this year that even though our raised beds are usually amazing and dry, drain, whatever really brilliantly well, just this one end where the garlic is seems to be holding on, and the garlic has just been rotting and looking awful. I've already pulled a few that had completely rotted, and the way I knew was just pinching these stalks right at the base. They had gone soft and squishy, and I knew it had rotted. So I already pulled some, and yeah, the bulbs had actually just completely disintegrated. So I'm going to have another check today, and I suspect there might at least be another couple. So that's the next job. As I said, all I'm doing is right down here at the base. If you press it, it should be firm. If it's firm, you know it's okay. If it's squishy in any way, then you've got an issue. And you can see some of them are looking really died back and awful. And again, here's the thing. You can see this one here, for instance, is looking really yellow. And again, this comes down to knowing your garden, your climate, your area. If you're down south in England, you're probably considering pulling your garlic, and it probably has a lot of yellow foliage, and that is okay, that's normal. That usually means it's ready. I don't usually have garlic ready at this time of year though. I'm usually end of July into August when I'm ready to pull it. So I knew when this started going so early, something was wrong. So you can see here, look how much give there is. So that is not a healthy garlic, so that's coming up. Yeah, here we go. Now, I'm going to just say one thing. I mentioned this on Instagram and got someone instantly told me I had white rot without knowing anything about my garden, my garlic, my growing. This is why I'm constantly telling you guys, don't listen to weirdos on the internet. Even me. if it was white rot, you would see the actual mould around it. And if you want to see what that looks like, I'll put a link in the description to Liz Grows Happy's Instagram channel, because she showed hers the other day. This is the bulb. Look, it's actually split. And when it splits like that, that's when the rotten stuff can get in. So this is no use, it's going in the bin. So the good news, I suppose, it's only actually happened to this much of the bed. So I've only lost 1 and a bit rows. So it could have been worse. The rest all seem to be fine. And as I said, this bed is full of alliums. I've got garlic, I've got 2 types of onion, I've got spring onions. Everything else is fine. It's just this end bit of the bed. And I really do think it's just down to the fact that it just got so wet this spring. But yeah, so that's a bonus. Hurrah! Weeds. And in saying that, I've got a few scapes here. Would you like the scapes for tonight's dinner, darling?
Yes, because we did Chinese, so that's why that.
Okay, all looking good. Again, the bed is over full. So I suppose, that gives me an opportunity to then talk onions and give you a wee review on what's happening with them. So now, I stupidly took my gloves off and now I'm going to be stinking of garlic and onion. These are the garlic scapes. But I made a big deal about these last year, but they taste amazing and they're awesome to cook with. They're like a subtle garlicky taste. Now, that's a good thing. Hardneck garlic does that, and that's why I grow hardneck garlic, because I want them. Here's the other version, which is the onions. Not such a good thing, because this is, the onion has bolted. It's not a good thing. We don't want it, because it means those onions won't store well. Now, it is one of the things, onion sets, if you grow from onion sets, they are much more likely to bolt than if you grow from seed. All of my onions were from sets because I don't normally grow onions, and it was Lindsay had spares and gave me them, so I completely changed all of my plans and decided to give it a go just for fun. All of them have bolted. So Lindsay said some of hers did too, and we have decided next year we are going to grow from seed. And there is a whole traditional time that you do that and things, and Lindsay and I are going to do it together, so there'll be a video. But yeah, now you can cook with the bolted, I suppose we're going to call it onion scapes just to make it easier, but the bolted bits of the onions. But we found they were quite a bit tougher than the scapes, and we didn't like the texture as much, so I'm not going to bother with these. Scapes, however, we love. So yeah. Other than that, the onions are looking great. They're starting to bulb up and I'm quite excited, so I'll show you that. So here we go then. This is the onion side of the bed. And like I say, I've got 2 types. So I've got snowball onions, which are these. And these are white onions. You'll see lots of smaller stalks. This is spring onions, so don't worry. These are my onions. So snowball are these nice white ones that are just starting to bulb up awesome. You can see here. I've also, to the left of them, got what we call brown onions, and I think in the States you call them yellow onions. So I've got those, and those are radar, and that's what this row is here. So apart from the problems with the wind, as you can see, they're all leaning in one direction, because that's the direction that the wind comes in. So you can see they're all going that way. But yeah, they're all looking awesome, all looking really healthy. So I've been told that I can expect them about late July, early August, the same as with my garlic. Lindsay gets hers a wee bit early, but she planted hers about a month before me. So we'll just wait and see, and I'll update you guys again when it's time to pull these. Like I say, quite excited. It's not something that was on our plan at all. So I basically had to give up a bed, because this entire bed is now full of onions, garlic, spring onions. So it did restrict what I could grow and how many iterations of each plant I could grow. But yeah, I'm doing my best to kind of go with the flow and see how we got on with it. So yeah, quite excited. Okay, so that is maybe a good time to tell you about the blackberries, which are on the fence here, or what we jokingly call the fruit wall. Let me tell you about that. Oh, the knees, I'm getting old. Okay, so let me turn the camera around. So this is a bit of a wide shot just to give you context, but we have got 2 blackberry plants. So you can see one there in that big green pot, that is a Loch Ness, and then here in the green pot is a Loch Tay. So let's go in, because I wish I had shown you this about 2 weeks ago. This entire fence was beautiful. It was just covered with the gorgeous white flowers from the blackberries. These little white flowers here, look. The whole fence was covered and it was just gorgeous. Now it is covered in the fruit that comes from those flowers. Look, heaps all the way along. It's just fabby. So August, September last year it was that we did the video about the blackberries. It had been our very first year growing, and we were quite happy. We got a decent harvest. I'm going to turn around because now I keep saying the garden's a wind tunnel. So we got a really good harvest. We were really chuffed. But at that point we were seeing the new canes come in, and they were super long, like 5-6 foot long. It's starting to rain as well. Nightmare. So they were 5-6 foot long. I'm going to do this quickly now. And they were getting whipped about by this wind that I've been talking about. So we knew we were going to have to tie them in, and we were a bit worried because we'd never done it before. I'm taking you in the greenhouse because that's the rain on. In the greenhouse. I'll turn you around so you get a nice background. So yeah, so today's a nightmare. So we tied it all in, but I went hunting on the internet because I'd never done it before, didn't know what I was doing, and we had to find some instructions. Now, I said then, one of the things I found was it was difficult to find proper info on it. I found a few good videos, but it wasn't 100% clear what I was tying in, because at this point I had these really big long canes, but each of those had little shoots on them as well. And I thought, is it the big huge long cane that I leave, or do I cut that shorter and then is it the little new growth that's going to get bigger that I'll tie in? But we took a risk and we tied up the big long canes and left it and monitored, and I'm pleased to say we obviously got it right because it is now looking stunning. 2 plants. The Loch Ness is giving us heaps. It had the most new canes and it has got the most growth on it and the most berries now coming up on it. That is looking awesome. The Loch Tay is giving us some, but not quite as much. So this year, I guess, is going to be us deciding, do we need 2 plants or will 1 plant do? What is the harvest going to be like? It won't be until late summer before we're actually harvesting, so we'll tell you once we've done that. We will let you guys know how it goes. And if you remember way back, all excited about this, Kate promised she would learn to make jam to use all the berries if we get too many. So I'll let you know how our jam making goes as well. Just a wee seat for a wee second next to the last bed, because I want to round up with a general review of my big sowing and growing plan, which inspired the entire Sow, Grow, Eat, Repeat. The plan had been then that instead of only growing kind of the spring, summer into autumn months, I was going to try and grow throughout the entire year, growing appropriate plants for the time of year. And this is a biggie for me. Oh, look, the sun's come out. And the biggie for me is I was going to try and only grow the amount we needed and just keep sowing and growing as we needed, rather than what I had a tendency to do before was grow, for instance, an entire bed of carrots, an entire bed of beetroot. And we always ended up with massive gluts because everything was ready at the same time. And that's great, we could cook it and freeze it and all that kind of stuff, but it meant we only had that fresh seasonal veg once. And then because we had filled all the beds and stuff, it was then too late to get enough going for another harvest. And we thought, no, we want to, number one, we want to keep having harvests and fresh veg from the garden. So we needed to reduce the amount we were doing at any one time, but we always wanted to have, say, one lot that were ready to harvest and the next lot were almost ready to harvest, and there's another lot getting sown behind. So it's called successional growing or successional sowing. That's the idea. So the other thing then, the second thing was the fact that I wanted to extend my gardening growing time and harvesting time, importantly, because I've always struggled during the winter. Winter in Scotland is quite dark and very, 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 very wet and horrible. We don't generally get those Christmas card picture scenes of the beautiful crisp snow and all that kind of stuff. It generally is just very grey and wet and horrible. So I used to get quite down over winter. This year, however, or last winter, I kept things growing. So I had things growing in the greenhouse and stuff growing in the beds. It wasn't a lot, but it meant I was still getting harvests of things from the garden, and looking out the windows, the garden still had things growing, which did wonders for my mental health. So this is the plan to keep it going. So far then, how is it going actually with all the plants? Let me pull you in and we'll talk in general about what I'm growing and how it's been, because I've not quite got the hang of this yet. This is, I'm just tidying up as I go here, so excuse me if I suddenly see things and trim them. This bed is the perfect example of how much I got it wrong. Because we got all the onions and I created the onion bed, I lost a growing space and I struggled to accept that. So I ended up putting far too much in this bed, and that has meant that my whole plan went out of kilter and I've kind of been improvising a bit as I go. So the first thing then, I grew far too many spring onions. So I had the spring onions going on really early in the greenhouse, had them coming on in there over winter, and I put them out in the beds early spring. And they've done awesome, we are loving it. But I've got far too many. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows in this bed, and I think I've got about 4 rows in the onion bed as well. And I've got a row in the bed that's got the courgettes in. All of these are at the same state because I sowed too many on the first go. The ones in the courgette bed are slightly further behind, and I've got 2 pots in the greenhouse that are very immature. So, I'm struggling for space because I grew too many spring onions. So that's one of the things I found in. This plan I created myself was very specific, and because it's my first year and I'm learning how to do these types of growing plans, I didn't leave myself much leeway, and when things didn't germinate, it actually threw me quite a bit. So for next year, I'm going to give myself a lot more leeway and be a bit more relaxed about it, so that it doesn't throw everything out if I get that same problem again. It's not the end of the world, but it's just one. I said I would give you an update, and these are the things I'm feeling. So the other thing then, so I've no lettuces. I've only got some gem lettuces in that bed because I had no space to put things out. So I've got no lamb's lettuce, which are our favourite, and I'm really gutted because we love it. So I'm going to have to rethink how that goes. We've got the perpetual spinach here, which we're giving a try. This is new. I can't really update you on it yet because we haven't used it enough to really have an opinion on it, but it is grown really, really well. And I've got 3 plants, and I probably don't need 3 plants again, so I got that wrong, amounts and things. But we'll see how it goes. So that's a not bad wee haul. I've got some beetroot and some spring onions and a huge pile of the perpetual spinach. Half of that we're going to use in dinner tonight, but everything else, we're going to visit my dad for Father's Day tomorrow, so that's a little organic veggie box to take through. Right, I'm going to sow some beans. I'm going to sow another batch of these Fandango dwarf green beans. These are the type of green beans we like to eat. They're quite fine little ones, and we eat a lot of them, which is why I thought I'll go back to these, because with the climbing beans, they produced a lot, so we couldn't keep up with it. And we found that they were quite a bit bigger and tougher than the little fine ones we like, so we weren't eating as many as we could have been. So I may as well go back to what I know we will eat, and it's these. So here we go. Now, from previous experience of growing these, I know that mine stopped producing kind of mid-August to late August, which is why I'm focusing on trying to have succession sowings of them. Don't know how well it's going to work, but we're giving it a try. Okay, two things, and I'm going to stand up. Oh, or sit down at least. I've oversown because these are old beans, so I don't know if that's why they're not germinating the way I expected, but I've oversown just in case I don't get many germinating again, because I can always pull them if I've got too many and thin it out. But also, you'll notice there's no support in place. Because of the little dwarf ones, I don't need to put in support for them. They're only going to get about that high, and they'll just kind of support each other as they're there. So that's them done. Let me show you the other ones though, because as I was saying, I bought some. So as I mentioned, I bought some green beans online, got them delivered. To be honest, they're not in the best shape. I'd rather have grown them myself, but this is my backup plan so that I've got plants that are reasonably well established to get me that harvest of beans soon. This is what I had planned, but with mine not germinating, this is the way I'm having to do it. And I said I've got some spring onions to go out as well, so I need to get them in somewhere as well. So I think all in all, I'm really happy with how things are going. I'm getting little harvests often. I've got the space to try out some new plants I've never tried before, and we've discovered new things that we really love that are going to be staples now. So can't complain. If there was anything at all I would say wasn't as successful to do with this plan, this way of growing, I would say it's probably just space in the greenhouse, because I've got so much coming on in the greenhouse to then go out so I can bring it on quickly. I don't really have space for the things I would normally do, like on days that are windy or rainy, it's hard for me to be sown when I'm wanting to get things sown, because I rely on doing that outside because I've no space in here. So you've seen me setting up tables outside, and I do a lot of potting on and sowing and things out there, which obviously relies on the weather. So that's the only thing I'd say is now my greenhouse is fully in use. I'm kind of struggling for space a little bit, and I miss having space in here. Yeah, because I've got like a whole shelf of stuff there to go out. I've got petunias and stuff up there. But if that's my only complaint, it's not bad, is it? I haven't reminded you guys in a while, so if you like this video, hit that thumbs up, grow those likes, and that helps to grow this channel. And you can help us to grow by sharing our videos, basically. Share with your friends, your family, anyone you think would enjoy this content. But also remember, because I know a few of you guys were saying you were missing videos recently, if you don't hit subscribe and click all on that little bell, you won't get the notifications every time we post a video. So make sure you do that. But until next time, when I've got a special guest coming onto the channel, I will see you. Hope this was fun and a bit useful. See ya!